There we go. Welcome back, everybody. We got 28 people so far. That's nice. Good to see everybody. What do we have? January 26th. It's like the 7th call now. So these are rolling along nicely, which is good. And not last week, but 2 weeks ago on the last call, we had a very good turnout, I would say, questions wise, because we incentivized some good questions and you guys really delivered on that. So we decided to do it again. And sure enough, I did see a lot of great questions come in. So that's good. So hopefully we will have a fun time together, as always. And, the new rules are basically, if you got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we will be able to answer them as they come up, or maybe, put them at the end. Looks like Bedejo dropped out, so he'll probably come back in again. I think he's having some Wi-Fi issues, so we might have to put him on the phone internet, the LTE. But yeah, let's see if that works out. If he does come back, then we'll start it off with the questions. As again, they were very good. It seems like just a little bit of $50 incentive, and all of a sudden the questions are like 100 times better. So thank you everybody for bringing the questions. Some real juicy ones. Freak Static might have to take over today if Bideo can't join. We'll have him answer all the questions. What do you guys think about that? That would be funny. Maybe not for him. He's laughing nervously. Okay.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes. We got
you.
You.
I'm not sure if this is going to hold up though. That's my concern.
Is it a Wi-Fi problem?
I think it is. So, which is
maybe you want to tether? What's it called? Tethering from your phone?
I'm not sure whether that will be like the quality will be good, but I can try if it happens again.
For me, it works as an alternative when my Wi-Fi is messing up. So,
okay, let me try again and see how long it holds up.
For now, we got you.
Okay, so good to see everyone. Sorry for the hiccups here, so I'll give it another try. So this is the first community call of the year. Is it the second? I think it's the second. I think we have some new faces, and I hope we can cover some content that people find interesting and answer questions or people are getting to wanting to hear the answer to. So let me first start with sort of a status check of where we are. So today we finally released the Giza network, which is a very big milestone. For those of you who are not aware, this is the network where we released the mature version of our storage system and our CDN. So now we really do have a scalable storage and content distribution infrastructure to go to mainnet with confidence. So that's a very big milestone for us. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see the community try out those new roles. There are going to be a lot of new roles that are rolling out, both in the storage and distribution infrastructure, but also we have new working groups. We have the marketing working group, we have the HR working group, we have the old builders working group. So there are a ton of new opportunities that are going to be coming online. So that's very exciting. The next immediate milestone is the Incentives 3.0 actually coming online. So this is the new incentive scheme for how the testnets work and how Joystream token allocations will be done. And really now we're in the process of making all the supporting tools and documentation that will make it easy for people to actually understand how the rules of the system work. Robert, I believe you have recently recorded, or you're in the process of recording, an explainer for how that will work as well. And a sort of loose estimate is about February the 9th, I think. We need some input from a few different people to get it across the finish line, but I think that's a realistic estimate. So that will be exciting, and that will probably be the point in time where we can actually allow people to occupy and participate in the marketing and HR working groups to like the full extent. So I think right now, once it launches, it's like in a very sort of idle state. I don't think the KPIs that Martin is crafting are going to set up any specific goals or incentives for those groups or for the council to give them resources. So we're in a little bit of a holding pattern because it's hard to roll out the incentive system and the network and everything at the same time. But that's going to be the next major sort of community milestone. Then we have the Olympia network, the long-awaited network, where we get, the combination of our current content system infrastructure from Giza, and then the new governance system and council and proposals and everything. And that will also be when we have Pioneer 2 coming out. So for those of you who haven't or not so familiar with the Joystream project, so Pioneer is the governance application that people use to vote and participate and go on the on-chain forums and do all this kind of stuff. And we have a new version of that coming out in Olympia. So all the work in that release is mainly about reconciling two very big parallel streams of work. So you have to reconcile the runtime, so the blockchain, the query infrastructure, storage infrastructure, integration testing, command line tools, everything. So it's a big task, but we are getting there. Then there is support for the crowdfunded bounty system, which is going to be coming to Pioneer. That is actually probably even going to be finished, possibly even before the Olympia network, but we will roll it out after. And the core blockchain support for the bounty system that's on chain actually will be part of the Olympia release. I believe even the NFT stuff is going to be in the Olympia blockchain, but it just won't be surfaced in the actual Atlas product, which is the consumer product. So if you're like a hardcore blockchain person, you can sort of use the command line tools and speak directly to the blockchain and start issuing NFTs and bounties on your own. I wouldn't recommend it. You may even actually cause some trouble for us, but it would be possible to do. And then lastly, it is the release of the NFT features in Atlas. So all the design work is basically done there. Now it's all front-end engineering, and it's early March, it's looking like at this point in time. So that's where we are. There are other streams of work that are occurring, but I don't want to make it too complicated. These are like the most important dates.
I'll throw the onboarding in there as well.
Yeah.
The development of the front-end development of the onboarding has begun. So pages are being built and all that. So we'll hope to launch that probably mid-Feb as well. Would be nice. And the goal obviously there is to be able to take newcomers and be able to turn them into people who kind of have a good idea of what we do and how they might be able to contribute. And so it should do a better job, hopefully, of taking people off the street, turning them into high value DAO contributors. So that's coming along as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it will. So I guess maybe that will be bundled into the Incentives 3.0 release since they're so close in time. Both of them are sort of not pinned down exactly in time, but they're probably going to be pretty close to each other. So maybe we just bundle them together. Cool. Okay. And then we had some questions submitted. Or is anyone monitoring the chat on the call just to capture other things that are happening in flight?
Yeah, I'm having a look at it, and I've told them as you dipped out that by all means, if they got questions, they're free to throw them in the chat, and we can get to them either right away or at the end. So.
Indeed. Yeah, it's more important to answer the questions that come up spontaneously rather than the pre-submitted ones, I think, because they're going to be more context available. All right, so the first question is the founding member program. Correct me if I'm not mistaken. As I understood, the less founding members Joystream has means more allocation for each of them. How do you think it will affect the future of Joystream DAO? So before, it certainly did work that way because there was a fixed pool of joy, and then you earn Joystream joy points. I believe it still works that way for like the next 6 hours or so. So if you guys don't remember, get your reports in. Today is the final day to send your founding member program reports where you get credit for all the stuff that you did in the old scheme before we go to 3.0. But in that scheme, that is correct. There was a pool of joy tokens that was available, and you would earn a share of that pool in proportion to how many points you had generated in the founding member program. So that was correct at that point in time. Moving forward, it will work differently. And Robert's going to make some deeper content to explain that in more detail. And there also are some issues on the marketing GitHub repo that explain it also quite a lot of detail. But to make it sort of a short and succinct story, you will there is no longer sort of a fixed pool globally that you're fighting over. However, within each council period, you will earn a share of the Joy tokens that are available for that period. So per period, there's going to be a certain number of points, which will be fully distributed. And you will get a share of that pool that is equal to the share of the T-Joy. So that's like your salary, your cash that you earn from the DAO for that same council period. So that means, of course, if you're in a position that makes a lot of money, like I assume, but I don't know exactly, maybe council members will make a lot of money because it's a very important task and you have to be quite competent and available. You probably will earn Joy tokens at a greater rate. However, that does not mean per se that it's better for you if there are fewer founding members per se, right? So if I become a founding member, that's sort of independent of whether you become a founding member. So in that sense, it's sort of independent whether you actually get your allocation or not. Now, at the end of the day, once we flip the switch and we go to mainnet, what do we do if let's say we had one founding member? Does that founding member just get everything? Of course, we have more than one founding member, so that's a moot point. But like however many we have now, we have 30 or 40 or something. Would they get everything? And to a certain extent, yes, we would want to avoid just arbitrarily including people. But I think if we get too few, then we would also focus on distributing founding member tokens after mainnet. So you can read more about the details of the founding member program on the new testnet. Is it called a wiki? I don't remember what it's called. It's this. It's a Gitbook. Yeah, a Gitbook. There you can see, and so we're keeping the door open to keeping the founding member program open after mainnet as well, and that's precisely for these scenarios where if we feel like we have too few founding members, then we would want to keep identifying them even after mainnet. But that's not the first order goal. So that was a long answer, but hopefully made you a little bit wiser about some of the details, and then you can work out whether that is a yes or no for what you were trying to get to. Okay. Freedom of speech. What's Joystream's stance on freedom of speech and censorship? What kind of content, if any, will not be tolerated on the platform? Great question. So I've made other content about this before. I think we need to make that like part of our FAQ or something so people can get a good intro to it. Well, first of all, you have to keep in mind that Joystream is not an actor per se. I'm not Joystream. JS Genesis isn't Joystream. No individual founding member, even Tomato, is not Joystream. So Joystream, if anything, is the DAO once it's live. And so the point is, what kind of policy would the DAO exercise with respect to freedom of speech and censorship? That's not something that really I can give any sort of reliable answer to. Now, there are two ways of thinking in general about censorship or content control in the system. So the first is that the DAO itself has content curators, and they're able to remove or change content in the core content index of the system if it doesn't align with the policies of the DAO. And the DAO has a constitution feature, which is basically this informal, subjective kind of document that will embody whatever their policy is with respect to all sorts of things, one of them being what should be curated and in what manner and under what circumstances. So the DAO certainly has the autonomy to control it, and JS Genesis has no reliable way of saying what the DAO will or won't do in terms of that kind of management. But then there's a second layer of sort of censorship, to use like a term that people don't love, which is the people who are actually hosting the experiences, so the apps, the mobile apps, the websites, whatever, where the people actually interface with the system. Like, for example, today on joystream.org, we as a company are hosting one app, an instance of Atlas, where you can upload and download and consume content. But we won't be the only ones. And the model is very much for a wide variety of different actors to operate these sort of applications where people can access the platform. And they will really both be responsible and be in the best position to exercise a second layer of control about what they want to surface for their users. And they could want to shape and restrict that because of a variety of things. One of them is just, because they have a specific kind of a business model. Maybe they only focus on short form content, or maybe they focus on, I don't know, some kind of a vertical, a language vertical. But certainly also, if they know that they're catering to an audience, they will need to be sensitive to whatever the jurisdictional issues are with respect to broadcasting content to that audience, right? So while to any given person, it may seem objective, maybe what you're allowed and not allowed to do, but you'll actually find that there are very different rules in different jurisdictions about what you can show people. So, China and Germany and Switzerland will have actually quite different rules about what you are supposed to be doing about showing people content as a sort of a platform or product. So that's why it's actually a very good design, in my opinion, to keep it, ultimately in the hands of the app hosting entity, which has a built-in business model on Joystream, which we'll get to at a later point in time, to actually control and exercise judgment about what they want to surface for their audience. That means probably the DAO can be a little bit more permissive about what they want to include, because they know at the end of the day, it's about, the relationship with the end user, where the final point of control has to be exercised. So hopefully that gave some clarity. There are two levels of control: the DAO and the individual applications that cater to different audiences. And Joystream should not be confused with JS Genesis or me, which don't really have any reliable way to say what the DAO will exercise or any particular application will exercise in terms of control. Okay. I think I beat that one to death successfully. Let me move on to the next one. Oh,
there was a question in the chat as well, which we could touch on. And if I were to summarize it, I think he's asking, so the operations working group has disappeared, right? And it's like different, it's marketing and HR now.
Yeah.
Is that how it works? And builders. Okay. So because the question was basically, if I've applied for the operations working group before, can I apply for these new ones? So the answer would obviously be yes. For sure. These are just sort of a more fleshed out version of the working groups. So absolutely.
Yep. There's no limit to how many times you can occupy any role, council or lead role or anything. So of course you can apply. You're more than welcome to. Okay. Next question is, have you considered an alternative to storage data? For example, using a data transfer protocol that torrent uses, where content is stored on users' local computers and not on leased servers. Yes, we have considered that. Actually, in the beginning, sort of way back when, Joystream started out focusing on the BitTorrent protocol and how to enhance it, how to add payments to it to make it more reliable. So we're very familiar with those kinds of protocols. In the old storage system that we used until 5 hours ago, the storage system used IPFS on the back end between different storage providers, which is this kind of a peer-to-peer data transfer protocol. However, we didn't really rely on end users. It was still between infrastructure providers that were having this role as storing data. And I think the reason for that kind of a design is that torrents or IPFS are not really a storage protocol, first of all, because there's no built-in reason within those protocols for why anyone should hold any piece of data. You have to layer some kind of a solution on top of that. And there are tons of different things that people do. Certainly, neither of those protocols, so torrents or IPFS or even Filecoin, are data distribution protocols. So they're not built to allow at-scale distribution of data with low latency to people all over the world. Again, you'd have to do something totally different, something much more like a CDN to get performant, fast playback, sort of geographically. And so what we have to do is really to bring that in-house, so to speak, within the DAO. So the DAO operates a sort of custom storage infrastructure and data transmission infrastructure, which actually solves those goals in a way which are aligned with the needs of the system. Because you do need a reliable way to store data. It can't just disappear a few days into the future because the person who was hosting one or more replicas of some content turned off their computer or didn't want to do it anymore. Or yeah, so the whole reliability question, which is not present, not addressed in torrent or IPFS. And likewise, the total absence of any kind of distribution guarantees in terms of latency and so on. So if you've used those protocols, one thing you'll certainly be aware of is that they work unreliably, even for content that is prevalent in the system. But for sort of long tail content, they really don't work at all. And most content on a platform which has a lot of user generated content will be long tail content, and that's what we have on Joystream. So therefore, it's really a bad fit. I could say more about why we don't use other storage or CDN-like protocols. Like there's Arweave and Filecoin and what's the other one? There's a CDN version, but I think that will get too involved. So I think I'll wrap it up here and I'll continue if someone wants to hear more about that at a later time. Joystream parachain. Does Joystream team plan to fight for a slot in the Polkadot ecosystem? Yes, we do. That is the plan. Now, maybe not everyone knows. It's not clear to me. So what is a parachain? A parachain is a layer 1 blockchain that is connected to, for example, something like Polkadot, which is called a relay chain. And this connection allows the parachain, for example, if Joystream was such a parachain, to be both more secure than it probably would be on its own, because it would rely on the validators in the Polkadot ecosystem, which have a lot of value backing them. And it would also have interoperability, so you could move assets from the Joystream blockchain into some DEX blockchain or into some lending or DeFi thing or into a centralized exchange or whatever. All those connections are going to work much better when you're connected to a relay chain like Polkadot or Kusama, which is a sort of a sister network. And to be a parachain, I may be just preaching to the choir here, but I just want to mention this in case people don't know. You have to win a slot in Polkadot, which is basically the right to be a participant as a chain in Polkadot, and that will require you typically to get a lot of DOT, which is the native asset of Polkadot, staked in favor of your parachain's bid to be a parachain. And that typically requires you to run something called a crowd loan, where you basically say to the community of people who have DOT, unless you have a lot yourself, which I or the project I wouldn't say have a sufficient amount of, you would say, hey, if you stake in favor of us becoming a parachain, you will get a certain percentage of the tokens in the Joystream blockchain. And so far, we've reserved 10% for this purpose. Now, I want to say, it is concerning how expensive it is to be a parachain on Polkadot and even Kusama. However, I do see that the prices have come down quite a bit. There probably was a premium associated with being early and having a lot of attention and marketing, and that is not worth that much for us in particular. We are really looking for the functionality of having interoperability and security, probably much less so, but at the very least interoperability. So, you know, any tokens we have to give to a Polkadot parachain crowd loan is tokens we can't give to founding members and to the community. And so that's expensive because those are precious incentives for people to get involved and to participate. So while we will aim to do it, is not a guarantee that we will do it. We would certainly consider a cheaper relay chain if at the time where we want to participate, the prices are still too high. Maybe the downturn will work in our favor and the prices for slots will decline. I don't know, but this is the plan. I would also say I'm quite uninformed on a lot of the details of the parachain auction crowd loan dynamics. Still, it hasn't been a priority for us. So, you'll have to bear with us as we learn more, because at this point it hasn't been a high priority. So yes, that's our plan. There are caveats. It's not guaranteed. Cool. Was that understandable?
Yeah, that was great. And at the risk of putting you on the spot, it's not a big thing, but we do have a live problem that has occurred, which is the actual form to submit your founding member contributions has broken due to the Giza update. So I do think we might have to change that deadline since that is today, and people are trying to submit and it's not working.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's happening as you're talking. So,
okay.
But relax, guys. I'm speaking on behalf of Brejo here, but I'm sure we could probably delay that a bit, right? It's not a huge deal for us.
Yes, you have to submit a screenshot that proves that you failed to do it at the right time, but then otherwise we will facilitate.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we tested a lot, but we probably didn't think about that particular part of the experience. Okay, that's funny. Yeah. All right. So moving on, I have 4 more questions. So it's not that much today. Creator business model. One of the important factors for content makers is the business model of the video service. Have you already decided how the business model will look on the project? So for creators, we have some pretty substantial sort of decisions for what their opportunities are already that will change over time. But like the most important ones are certainly that they get to issue NFTs for their content. They get to issue a social token, which allows them to basically tap into their future revenues and share some of that upside with their community, so that they also get people promoting them, helping them, and also giving them early access to some financing to expand their channel. So those are the sort of primary business model tools. You also earn revenue from the DAO. So the DAO is the ability to pay out all the channels on the system. That could be based on a variety of things. It can be based on actual views on gateways. It can be based on just agreements about what you get, maybe because you have a brand name or just because you're considered strategically important. So you get that revenue stream from the DAO as well, not only from your audience directly. And those are really the primary sort of core business model ingredients. We will have other incentives for why creators would want to jump in and try Joystream out. So for example, we will be creating a creator program similar to the founding member program, where they get Joy token allocations. We will be setting up the YouTube sync functionality, which allows them to copy over and synchronize all their YouTube content. So it becomes really, really, really low effort to have a free backup on Joystream of all their content. So all these are reasons to jump in. But then once you jump in, those two sort of digital asset tools of NFTs and social tokens are the main sort of new tools you have embedded within the platform that you don't really have anywhere else. And I think longer term, the business model will also be that creators probably will be able to reach consumers with totally new experiences, because really Joystream is a platform for people to build products in a way that, for example, YouTube isn't. Really, no one builds products on top of YouTube because it's not an open and neutral system. But on Joystream, that will be much more so the case. And so your content will be able to be packaged and distributed to people in totally new ways that can grow your audience and allow you to reach people in a way that you can't with just the standard sort of video consumption experience that we're all used to. So I think that's the longer term sort of upside that creators have in terms of reaching people in a new way. So I hope that was clear. Then it's competitors. I feel like I skipped one. Competitors. Now let me go to attracting viewers first. And the second, because I think this was the same person actually. No less important question. Everyone is wondering how to track content makers, but after all, it is also necessary to track ordinary viewers. How do you plan to do that? That is true, but I would say that viewers are like the least important audience. I would say like the top audience for us are you guys, founding members, DAO operators, developers. Those are the most important people we need to track right now. And let's say in the next year, those are the most important people because they're the sort of make or break audience for whether the platform can actually grow and continue and evolve. Then the second most important audience is the creator side. I think the timing there is far less urgent, but we do also need to have a clear way to prove value for the initial set of creators that would be onboarded. And I just spoke about that on the previous slide, so hopefully that's clear. And then the viewers come third. And I really think the viewers really follow the creators. That would be the main path I see people getting into the system. People follow content. Just like, no one goes to Patreon just because they love Patrons, because they have some specific creator that they want to interact with in some new way. And so the creator becomes the advocate who says, hey, come on Patreon to do XYZ with me and my gang on Patreon. And I think that's going to be the main way to get viewers on over to the system. And then they will naturally discover other creators that perhaps they wouldn't have found otherwise. But that's the sort of main pathway for viewers to get into the system. I think, again, going back to the long-term vision of alternative product experiences, that certainly is another way viewers would be attracted to the system, even outside of getting content from creators. So just totally new, interesting video products that no one has thought of yet. But again, that's further ahead in time. So I don't want to emphasize that as the first order mechanism. Cool. Competitors. Do you have competitors? If yes, what makes you different from other projects? So I think this business of defining competitors, it just depends on what you think you're doing. So if you just think of Joystream as a YouTube alternative, then there are sort of two flavors of competitors. There's the sort of centralized video platform operators that choose to maybe have a different policy. So things like BitChute or maybe even DTube, things like this come to mind. They do claim to be using different technology in various ways, but I'm not sure how verifiable that is. I think they're pretty much just websites that work totally like end to end, like YouTube does, just at a smaller scale, but they have maybe attracted a different segment of creators and their audience, or they have different rules for who can be there. And so that's one way of thinking of competitors. So we're very different from them in a variety of ways. I guess it should be relatively obvious how we're different. Then there is maybe the people who do some kind of blockchain-based, like live streaming creator kind of a thing. I would put things like DLive in this category, or Theta, or some people even compare us to LivePeer, which I think is a little bit misguided, but they're like these different projects which seem to focus a lot on infrastructure. So they say things like, we're going to revolutionize the way we deliver live streaming content to people. And I think they really don't think about themselves as anything else than just the pipes moving the data from A to B. To the extent that you see products built on top of them, they're mostly like meant as demos, I think, because they don't really, there's no like content directory that's supposed to be universal or monetization that's supposed to be important. I think mostly it's all just a way to show, hey, we can, in some kind of a peer-to-peer kind of a way, move data around. And arguably, maybe Joystream could use those if we wanted to do live streaming, but that's not a priority for us. But in that sense, they're very different because they totally lack, the whole DAO side and the creator tools and the content, and yeah, so they're quite different in that regard. Then I think the closest you can, I think maybe a project that you can compare us to is something like Library, for example, or LBRY, if people are familiar with that. So they are very focused on having like a blockchain-based content index that's universal. They have some form of monetization in there. And certainly what I would say for them and many of the others that I've mentioned is that they're further along than us. So that's certainly a difference. So they maybe have been live, some of them for many years, or they've just been alive at all because we're still on testnet. So that's a differentiator. I should definitely give them credit for that. What you see with a lot of those systems is that they're another one that comes to mind is Audius, which sort of does the same thing as Library, only for music. So I think technically and design wise, they're very, very similar. What you see with those systems is that, first of all, they really do rely on some kind of a core team to pay for all the costs of developing and operating the system. So like all the infrastructure bills, all the development time, everything comes out of the pockets of a centralized team whose fate really therefore controls the fate of the platform. And so if those teams for any reason fail to operate or lose their funds or anything, there's no way for you to come there and build another product or something where basically you would have to, in effect, pay for all the costs of reaching the audience and so on. And so you'd be sort of recreating, in a sense, very close to a full stack content system yourself, because so much of the actual system that makes things work, for example, on Library, are not actually part of the protocol or the blockchain. It's part of what a private entity is operating on their own. So that's a big differentiator, I would say, a big difference in how those are organized. So in Joystream, all the costs, everything for paying and for storage and development and where the project is going is being funded by the project itself. There isn't a team that has some pre-mine that they're supposed to, at some point in the future, I don't know, make the project become sustainable magically. It's really built in from the get-go in Joystream. So I think the community side and the sustainability side is an important differentiator for us. And I would say in most of those systems, there are no NFT, social token, any of these tools for creators to do something new either. So I hope I don't sound too unfair, but that would be my overview of how we're different to those different categories of projects. Attracting viewers. I did one already. Okay, last one. Mobile and live streaming. When will video platform appear on mobile devices, and how will the wallet be integrated? Do you plan to create a live video streaming function? If so, how will it be implemented? So I would say no, we don't have a plan for that, and we probably never will. That would be, never is a strong word, but certainly we will not before mainnet. I don't think we would take that on even all of this year. I would love to see that being something that can flourish in the community when people can get funded for it and have a business model around it. But I don't think that's something we have the capability or priority to pull off inside of JS Genesis. That applies both to the mobile side and the live streaming side. So yeah, unfortunately, we do get recurring requests for live streaming, which I find to be a little surprising. Well, maybe not surprising, but like the size of those two markets, like on-demand content versus live streaming, they're many orders of magnitude more on the on-demand side. So it just seems much more important to me, even leaving aside all the technical and scope issues of trying to tackle it. But we have a very clear way in which how you could incorporate it. That's pretty clear. So we have the idea of working groups. We have a very standardized way of sort of having a paid role in the system. So there would be a clear path for how to do it. And we probably want to, I'm talking about live streaming at this point. And we probably want to augment some off-the-shelf software for doing that at scale. But this point, I'm just making things up as I go along. So we have no plans for that. Hope the person who asked is not too disappointed. So that's it, actually. So we've gone for 47 minutes, I think. It was a little bit of a delay in the beginning, but so that is it. I don't have any more questions. Do we have anything in the chat?
Yeah, we got a short one. So great stuff. Guys, if you do have other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat as we get to the last question, or actually 2 questions in the chat. But if you have any more, feel free to throw them in there. The first one is, there's a new council today. Is there going to be KPIs for this council?
I think there will, but I think there will be, let me to put it politely, low effort or like very generic. Don't expect much. So Martin, who does the KPIs, is gonna, he will have finished the release of Giza today, and then he's gonna have to jump straight into incentives 3.0 and Olympia network testing not too soon after that. So maybe we'll have a few KPIs that will sort of be quite simple, maybe not that much changing. So there will be, but there will be delays, and they won't be that new and interesting. That would be my guess, but I haven't spoken to him about what he has in mind.
Cool. The last question I can actually answer. So it's was the latest JS Genesis funding round announced officially? The answer to that is no. We have prepared a draft of a press release, and we have contact with one of our investors who owns CoinDesk, which unfortunately doesn't guarantee that we'll get a feature in there, but that is certainly our plan. So we are effectively going to take that press release to this person who will try to help us to get featured in CoinDesk, which would be great for the project. And if we manage to do that, then we'll try to spread that over to other media outlets to sort of maximize the press there. I do think it is one of those events that media outlets tend to write about. So why not try to maximize the attention for the project, as we do have something to announce on that front. So that'll be happening pretty soon, actually, as far as sort of getting the ball rolling on it. It doesn't happen overnight, like getting them to write about it and all that, because they have to actually, understand the project and write it, the actual thing, and post it. And I'm sure there's a whole process internally for all that stuff. But that hopefully is coming up. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But I believe that's it. So great questions, great answers. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm always fascinated. We seem to have a larger attendance at the end of the calls than when we begin, which is something that I'm not used to. It's, it's usually going downhill. So that's got to be a good sign that we're doing something right here. So yeah, I mean, that's all for us. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you on Discord, and we'll do this again in about 2 weeks. So cool.
All right. Take care all. Bye.
See you guys. Ciao.